Hello and welcome to a rapid-fire biography of René Descartes, the Renaissance Man by J.Donohue for History of Psychology 4472, Section 1, here at Idaho State University. René Descartes was born in 1596 to a wealthy family in La Haye, France. His father was a lawyer and away on business, and his mother died, birthing one of his younger siblings, so he was raised by his grandmother, older siblings, and a nurse. He was formally schooled from the ages of 10 to 16, and it was there that he encountered philosophy from Plato, Aristotle, and other Christian philosophers. He was trained and a master in many things. He was a brilliant mathematician and he knew everything that there was to know by the age of 21 in math of the day. He was a professional soldier, a psychologist, and a pioneer, and he enjoyed himself with what the world had to offer, including dancing and gambling as was prudent. And these experiences led to future tantalizing questions that he would later ruminate over, such as human passions and obsessions. He was often on the move. He moved over 20 times because he was just a very private individual and thought that people were out to get him. He experienced an intellectual crisis. His mentors had their own limitations, and he felt that no expert or tradition could be trusted, and that nothing was beyond doubt, and only through logic and intellect could true understanding take place. Thus, he came to a method of self-exploration, meditation, and just general introspection. All this can be summed up: in order to improve the mind, we ought less to learn than to contemplate. So instead of just reading a book, all the answers were more or less innate. There was this big idea that came from Descartes as innate ideas from God mattered, and you could find those through introspection. Generally, the rules to this method: number one, only personally evident revelations truly counted. You had to consider the parts of the whole, and you had to be orderly and logical in your thinking. The first building block came. It was the existential assertion of his self and his being. If everything had to be questioned, then he had to question, am I even real? Am I even here? So it was written down in Latin, his response to this question, am I even here? Am I real? And the response was cogito ergo sum, which translated to mean essentially, I think, therefore I am. Some of his other ideas that he came about: he was essentially a behaviorist and a mechanist. So he believed that there was, as many did at the time, something called animal spirits, that sensation would enter the bodies of animals and humans via sight, sound, touch, what have you, and that quote-unquote animal spirits, this liquid, would be released into the body given this stimulus such as threat, food, potential mate, exertion, whatever, and these caused human action. So a very hot flame, you'd stick your hand in it, animal spirits would come into the body and it would force you to pull your hand back so you didn't get burned, kind of a deal. The one exception, the one difference between humans and animals was that humans had a mind. The mind was fully separate from the body and yet was completely permeated in it. Essentially, the mind could modify the reflexive actions that came to animals, which gave humans rationale, free will, and awareness. Thus, he was an early dualist, and he believed in both the body and the mind. He believed that the mind was not localized in any one place, but that there were certain structures in the brain that were different from humans and animals that would allow the body and the mind to be mediated between. Here's just a breakdown of the differences between the two, the body and the mind. And then one other big idea he had was regarding passions and obsessions. There were 6 passions that Descartes identified, and these were wonder, love, hatred, desire, joy, and sadness. And in every given moment, any of these could be present in any amount to really give life its kind of flavor that we understand today. René Descartes has been hailed as the father of both modern philosophy and modern psychology. He contributed to behavioristic psychology, cognitive psychology, comparative psychology, and the concept that innate ideas are within us. And this led to schools of thought in empiricism and sensationalism. Some of his peers and people he would have gotten along with really well would have been Sigmund Freud and B.F. Skinner, as well as Isaac Newton, who was directly influenced by some of his concepts of nature and natural law, as well as his math. Descartes was a religious person. The Catholic Church did influence some of his work. He didn't publish some of his books because he was afraid of inappropriate things that might land him in trouble. And he ultimately died attending to the Queen of Sweden, who was an amateur philosopher herself, by catching pneumonia in 1650. And these are my references. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful day.